All right, so let's get stuck in. I really got a range of questions today. Everything from round penning to mouthing a horse to building top line to introducing clippers. So lots of cool questions as usual. All right, so let's get stuck in. So first question is this. What do you do the days your horse is feeling worried about their surroundings and can't focus and relax? Okay, so let's just look at a little bit of detail into when your horse is worried about their surroundings and can't focus. And I think we've all had that, horse has been going great, and then there's just a day where it just won't settle. Okay, and some horses seem to be a little bit more prone to that than others. And just let me talk a little bit about that. Sometimes it can be seasonal. Okay, so sometimes it can be associated with certain seasons, such as now, like spring. Spring's just sprung. And I think spring, which we don't realize, spring really affects horses because, it's where there's a lot more like sugars are coming through in the grasses. But not only that, they're kind of being triggered. It's breeding season and all that. And even though there might be geldings or whatever, and they haven't been in that kind of natural situation, they've still got things triggered in their body, and anything that can kind of cause changes to their thought patterns or whatever can actually change how they perceive the world. And if it is to say sugar in the grasses, that can make them have more sugar inside them. So think about kids with sugar and cordial and things like that. It can just make them a little bit more sensitive and reactive to their environment. Other things I want to talk about is a few little odd things that you might not think about. I used to have a very lovely special horse that if I rode him in the morning, he was absolutely fine. However, you ride him at about 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon and he was really spooky and looky and reactive and a little bit more difficult than normal. Well, there was a bit of a pattern to it. So he's fine if I rode him in the morning, but in the afternoon not. Now, the reason for him being more reactive and up in the afternoon was really because of gastric ulcers. Okay, he certainly didn't fit the gastric ulcer case. He was chubby and foodie and none of those things that you think if they've got ulcers they won't eat, etc. It does depend on the ulcer and their location, but as it got on towards him getting dinner, his stomach juices would start kind of flowing, and that would actually give him a sore stomach. So that led to kind of anxiety and discomfort. And of course, when a horse is suffering that, as soon as you start putting things that go and fill the worry cup, they become more sensitive and reactive to their environment, because as soon as they start feeling discomfort or they get to a certain level of arousal or things that are like kind of setting them off, they start perceiving the world negatively. So start to become very reactive to the environment. So, treating ulcers or, giving horse a little feed before you eat, those types of things can all help with horses like that, especially the treating the ulcer business and then treating the management, which is causing the ulcer business. So, yeah, so if you've got a horse that, tends to be, suddenly reactive to their environment, there's no necessary reason to it, or there might be a pattern for it. Going down and investigating the cause of what's causing that. It can also be, a horse might suffer from arthritis and they haven't been in work lately, and so they're a little bit more stiff and sore to begin with. And of course, put discomfort in the worry cup and they immediately start perceiving their world a little bit differently, okay, and negatively, so they become more reactive to it. So digging down into the cause is important. Other little things that you might not think about is we are really not sensitive to smell at all. Like, we're very oblivious to smell. Humans are. Not horses, not dogs, not things like that. Okay, so if there's been a fox sniffing around your, where you work the horse or whatever, horses can be triggered by that. Also snake season, I swear horses have an extra sense about snakes coming out and about at this time of year, especially over here. There's already been some sightings of some snakes. And that can also put horses on edge as well. So digging down into the cause, trying to see if there's a pattern, something that's triggering that behavior, but then it might be seasonal and it might be things we don't we're oblivious to, such as, breeding seasons setting things off, or snakes or things like that. So understanding the cause is good, and that can help cure it. However, on those days when your horse just is a bit up and a bit reactive to their environment, what do I recommend you do? Okay, so recommend the golden rule. You want to have as many positive experiences with that horse as possible, because you want to build trust, and trust is built in small moments, in little things. Okay, you can have 100 great rides, but you have one ride where that horse gets freaked out, or feels discomfort, or gets a massive fright and can't get over it. That can undo all the good things. So think of that analogy of the marble jar. Okay, Brene Brown has a great analogy of the marble jar. And it's every little moment where, the horse has a good ride or good experience and positive experience for you, a marble goes in the marble jar. Okay, and the more full that marble jar is of marbles, the more trust they have for you. Okay, however, one moment where it all goes pear-shaped can empty all those marbles out. Okay, so you always got to be focused on filling the marble jar. So if you've got a horse that can't handle much on a particular day, then what you do is you do something less difficult. So just say on a day where the horse is really worried about their surroundings, how about doing some groundwork? Okay, and then it might be coming down to doing groundwork in the place they feel more comfortable. They might not be coping with one end of the arena, but they might be okay at another, at the the gate end, or the end that's closest to their paddock. Well, fair enough. You know what, that particular day, yeah, you're going to be working on groundwork, and you're going to be doing some fitness stuff, or some more work on their core, or etc. So you do something easier. That's the rule. They do something easier, and you want to protect those marbles in the marble jar. Okay, don't necessarily challenge it. So that's what I recommend, and that's why having groundwork skills is gold. Okay, it's really gold, because on days when the horse is just not itself, it's just not coping, you go ride it, it's going to cope even less. Okay, because whatever's worrying, it's filling its worry cup, you sitting on its back is just going to probably blow it over the edge, and something's going to happen. And whether it's going to lose its confidence in it, the horse is going to lose its confidence in you, or you're going to lose confidence in the horse, it's not going to be good for the marble jar. Okay, so that's my answer to that question. What do you do on days that your horse is feeling worried about their surroundings and can't focus or relax? It's do something easy that they can cope with. Find that, okay? That might be not riding it, doing groundwork. That might be doing groundwork down an end of the arena where it feels comfortable. Maybe it won't even cope with that. Maybe it might be doing a little bit of groundwork in its paddock. Maybe it might be taking it for a walk. Maybe it might just be grooming it. Something like that, to have a positive interaction. Although going to the cause is, that's the important thing to do, is recognizing patterns, identifying things. But remember, horses are living creatures. They're like us. They have good days and bad days, and sometimes they can be triggered by things that we are oblivious to. All right, so anyone got any comments about that? There's a little bit of a delay in the comments, so I'm just going to pause while those comments come through. Just while I'm waiting for the comments to come through, just to let you know that I'm starting to do a lot more on YouTube. I'm actually really struggling with Facebook to get Facebook to actually send any of my stuff to people, and people are coming back to me going, I wanted to participate in, just say, the round pen challenge, but I never got any notifications about your posts, etc. So yeah, Facebook's been really difficult. That's why I'm trying to push people to subscribe to my website. So I can send you emails, because I'll know that you'll get them, well, as long as you check your spam folder regularly. But also YouTube, trying to do a little bit more on YouTube, because that has a little bit better with its notifications if you subscribe to my channel. Okay, I don't seem to have any questions on that particular answer. Okay, next question. Okay, what's the first step in mouthing? Oh, what a good question this one is. What's the first step? Okay, everything leads to mouthing. So, really, what is it? It's square one. It's my backwards, forward and yield exercise, because that's getting the horse to follow the feel of that halter on its face. Because when you go put a bit in the mouth, okay, you want it to be really following the halter really well. And in fact, I do a lot of groundwork in the halter, of course, and then I ride the horse in the halter and getting them really feeling that, following the feel of the halter on their face. And then I swap it to the bit, of getting the horse to follow the feel from the bit, okay? But it's not a big step for them because they've already been following the feel of the halter, okay? So that is really where I start, is way back there. In terms of other things, if you want to know specifics of, as I said, there's kind of many first steps. It does start with that, backwards, forward and yield exercise. However, other little things to let you know is, to mouth them, you've got to put a bridle on them. So the first step in bridling is teaching them to put their head down. And I start introducing them to put their head down in the round pen. Okay, when I start resting them, that's one of the things I introduce, is just teaching them to put their head down in there. Then I teach them how to open their mouth by putting my thumb in their mouth. Then I get them to open their mouth and I can slide in a bit of rope. Okay, just the rope of the lead rope, putting that in, taking it out. Then I get putting a bridle on, so putting a bridle on with a bit, on and off, on and off, on and off, okay? Then I get them to hold the bit for a bit, okay? And that's really important, of just getting a horse to hold the bit in their mouth without putting any pressure on it, because you want them to habituate, what's known as habituate, or get used to having that bit in their mouth without anything happening to it, just holding it in their mouth. Then what I do is, of course, I've just said, when I start riding them, I ride off the actual halter in a side pull position. So I recommend the hybrid halter. Hybrid halters are fantastic. And I clip rope reins to the rings on the side of the hybrid halter, and I steer off that. And of course, the first thing I do is lateral flexion. Okay, I start teaching that in groundwork really early on. And that's really important, that you actually get them to flex correctly, because there can be lots of errors of how a horse actually flexes. And to get really good steering, okay, and really good mouthing, you want the horse to have a really good habit of how it responds to following that feel with its head, because lots of horses can get neck twist. Okay, so you want them actually flexing at that pole joint and actually flexing their head correctly. And in fact, if you get into some classical dressage in hand stuff, they actually use, I think it's might be a German or an Austrian word for or Swiss word for actual that movement of that flexion of the pole, called stellning, okay, because that's really important. So making sure the horse is actually responding to the lateral flexion correctly and not incorrectly, because that has a massive impact on everything down the track. Yeah, so after I ride them around in the halter, I ride around in the halter with the bit in their mouth, just carrying it, and I very slowly introduce that to the bit. I actually don't do any long reining or anything like that. It's not that I don't agree with long reining, it's just that I've never had to do it, because the way that I mouth horses works, okay, by teaching them to follow the feel. Anyway, I hope that answers that question well. Do I have any queries on that, on the mouthing? As I said, I've just got a bit of delay on the comments, so I'll just wait. Just had a question from Debbie. If a horse seems okay till you get partway through a ride or a comp preparation and then gets worried, are you in the saddle and things are looking to go a bit pear-shaped? Oh, look, if any time the horse shows me that it's not coping, as I said, I protect my marble jar like anything. If the horse is showing me they're not coping, and I just can't give them a bit of time or do something easier or reduce pressure in some instance, just say I'm at a competition and they're not coping with, just say, the warm-up, if I go to a quieter place in the warm-up, does that help them? If they're still overwhelmed or they're not coping, and even if they decide they're overwhelmed halfway through a dressage test, stop there. You got to protect them from bad experiences with you, because that's how you make them brave. Because the more trust you have, the braver they are. So I'm always prepared to abort any ride at any time, okay, make it easier for them, because pushing through something is not a cool way to be. Sure, if you're at the Olympics, maybe that's a time to push through something. However, most of the time, what are the stakes? The stakes are not important. The most important thing is that horse and that relationship with that horse. And if it's not coping with something, it's best that you listen to them. So any comments on the bit, the mouthing bit? Seems to be no questions on that. Cool. So I'll move forward to my next question. But yeah, just reiterating with the mouthing thing. Mouthing starts from the start. Getting the horse understanding that it's got to follow you. That is absolutely crucial to everything. Okay, next question. What's your thoughts about how best to help the horse who panics when there is more pressure than they can handle? So the pressure could be from a new environment or asking for something extra to be done. Oh, this is a good question, okay? Because this is lots of dimensions to this question. So my easiest answer to that. So what's your thoughts about how to best help the horse who panics when there is more pressure they can handle? That actually means you should be doing something easier. Remember the whole concept of square one. Tom Dorrance's, Ray Hunt's idea of square one. It normally means if they're not coping with what you're asking them to do here, guaranteed that if you go backtrack, there's going to be some bad quality stuff before that. Your square one's not good enough. And I am an absolute nitpicker for square one. That's basically what I do. I do very, very simple things. Like we're going to come to a question in a minute about, the type of groundwork exercises I do. It's like I actually don't do very many because I discovered that you can do 50 exercises sort of okay, or you can do 3 really, really well. So it normally means if a horse isn't handling something, it means that its quality of everything that comes before that is not good enough. And I swear some people get bored by, the odd lesson I give them because it's like, what? You're still having to use the whip for that horse to go forward. Not good enough. We go back and we work on forward until that horse will go off a gentle squeeze. Why? Because that's really important. You try to add on when you're having to use a whip or threaten to use a whip for a horse to go forward. You got something wrong, and it means you're having to yell at them just to go forward. That if you're going to ask them to do something harder, like go sideways as well, it's just that means that horse is taking on some discomfort that it doesn't have to. So go and do something easier and fix up what came before that. Okay, that's my easiest answer. So what I would normally do if a horse is struggling with something, I just start stepping it backwards. Okay. I just start stepping it backwards in its training. So if it's not coping with ridden, I'll get off just say if not coping with something advanced ridden. So just say I'm up to doing some lateral work or more advanced. So I'd go back and I'd test my foundation. I'd let go of the reins, my basic forward response and my bending responses. Okay, I check that. I'd go and I'd find if there's any problem there. I'd go backwards and then I'd tweak what I'd had to and go and then start stepping it back up again. If a horse is not coping with basic foundation ridden stuff, I go to groundwork. If groundwork's a struggle, I'll go to the round pen, okay? Because round pen is really where you tweak the real attitude, focus, and engagement of the horse. Okay, round penning is really, really deep and a real special place. However, if you keep going backwards and keep finding problems, that's a massive red flag. There's something wrong with that horse. And a little while ago, I had a horse that had started, it was having trouble under saddle and it had started bucking and refusing to go forward and being really difficult in its forward response. And then in groundwork, it had started being aggressive and charging and doing things like that. So I took it and I put it, of course, back into the next stage down, which is round penning. And it took me, well over a week to get that horse to stop being aggressive in the round yard, okay, which was red flags as itself, but I was able to stop it from getting aggressive, but I couldn't get that horse to go forward without pressure. It just would not learn to maintain forward. Anyway, that's when I knew, massive red flags. There was something wrong with this horse. And of course, I'd already sent it to the vet a few times, but they hadn't picked up on it. But finally, they were able to work out there was something indeed wrong with that horse, and that horse had C6, C7 malformation in its neck vertebrae, and it actually had terrible arthritis in its neck. Okay, so you keep stepping backwards, but it wasn't what, the vets initially said, that, oh, look, it's just lacking strength, it's a young horse, rah-de-rah-de-rah, and then of course, other trainers have labelled it, a piece of work and a real bitch to work with and things like that. It wasn't. By just stepping back in that process, I was able to show the vets that this horse had a learning problem and something was interfering with its learning, and that happened to be pain, and I was able to show that. Okay, so if it is something, so getting back to this question, so if it's not handling something in the environment, make the environment easier for it. So if it's freaking out about being away from its friends in the paddock, move closer, work it in the paddock. It's all about you help horses cope with things by teaching them, by them learning things. That's the answer to everything, by them learning and being motivated to respond and getting confident. That's why I call this group and everything calm, willing, confident horses, because they're the kind of stages and the qualities of a horse that you actually train. Okay, however, to answer this question, I want to put another thought in your mind, because lots of people come to me and said, oh, look, my horse just doesn't cope with this, and I can't use the whip because they just don't cope. They lose, they lose it, they crack it, they can't, etc. And then I'll work the horse, and I don't see a horse that is freaking out. I see a horse that has identified that if it gets asked to do something, it triggers a negative thought and a negative emotion inside of it, and it will act out. So the horse actually learns then that if it adopts this negative emotion and lashes out in a certain way, is that it quietens its human down. Okay, so it has learned to adopt a negative mindset, a negative emotion, and a negative kind of an emotional outburst in response to being asked to do something. So that horse has a very small threshold of what it will actually do for you. Okay, it's that whole concept I've talked about. It is that, if you've just got a horse that will only do, they're happy if you just stand with it and pat on it in the paddock, or stand with it or lead it or let it just do something in like a really moochy, slow, boring trot. But if you ask it to canter, it cracks it. That's the equivalent of having someone that says they love you, and they love you when they sit on the couch and they watch Netflix with you. But if you ask them to do some housework, they get cranky and they won't do it and they lash out at you. That's a little bit what happens with horses, especially if you've backed off. You've asked them to do a little bit more, like to do a canter, strike off or something like that, and they rage, they take off and they rage around. That's not necessarily them not handling the pressure. That's them actually learning, and they can kind of control you, or they get triggered into this mindset, this habit of having this negative mindset being triggered, and they're actually having a frustration burst. So it's not fear. It's actually not fear. It's more on the side of the emotion of anger and frustration. So with that horse, with those horses, they are cured by just insisting on them doing it. So those horses are normally cured by me giving them a bit of a tap with the whip. Okay, and ignoring their outburst and then asking them again. And those horses just go into their boxes, and immediately kind of the transformation in them is, quite impressive, because I actually just needed to untrain this negative mindset. Okay, so the answer to that question is, first of all, do something easier and fix up your square ones. Fix up what comes before what you're asking them to do, because I'm telling you now, you got a glitch there. Secondly, if it's an environmental thing that's triggering them, make the environment more comfortable with them or reduce the distractions. Finally, though, I want to put that idea in your head that you might not actually having a horse that's necessarily overwhelmed by the pressure, but they've learned a habitual kind of emotional response to going over their threshold of comfort. Okay, and that's the whole concept of willingness with a horse that you have to train. So there's some thoughts for you. So just having a look at the questions that the comments from you guys from that. Oh, I'm going to have to be a little bit delayed. So the question before was about bits. So I've got Debbie asking for a bit preference. I'm actually coming to that question soon, Debbie. So I'll get to that. I will tell you just now my favourite bit is a Mila Mullenmouth. Oh, good. Janet's joined us. That's brilliant. Just seeing if there's if anyone else has any questions on that comment about when horses panic when there's more pressure than they can handle. Basically just means you got a glitch. It's a glitch whether what comes before it is not good enough, or you've got a glitch. You've got this horse that's adopted an emotional kind of response, and it's worked out if it acts kind of emotionally, you'll back off. Because you've got to remember that it's a conversation that you're having with the horse, and the horse learns what it does. Every time you release the pressure on a horse, you say, yes, horse, that's what I want you to do. And if that involves the horse getting negative and kind of, threatening you a bit and you backed off, that's what the horse learns, Okay, I'll move on. Doesn't seem to be any questions there, which is cool. I'm now going to go on to the next question. Oh, good, it's the bit question, so that's cool. Okay, your recommendation on straight bar bits for bit jiggling horses. Okay, I do have my favourite bit, which I said is a Mila Mullenmouth, but that, it's just what I've found that I've been able to fix anything with. But, there's lots of people that have gone off from, my advice and had other different bits that have had really good responses with their horse. So just because my favourite is a Mila Mullenmouth, doesn't mean that that's the be all and end all. It's just that's my go-to bit, and I haven't had to go to another one yet. Okay, so let's just talk about bit jiggling when horses play with the bit, or chomping, neurotic chomping. And what it is, it's neurotic. Okay, it's neurotic. The horses play with their bit and then they neurotically chew on it. And what that is, it's neurotic. It's neurotic. And what it means is the horse has an anxiety with the bit, and it's actually developed like this kind of like a superstition that if it keeps moving the bit and playing with the bit, that the bit won't hurt them, or it will hurt them less. So it is anxiety about the bit. Okay, it means the horse doesn't trust the bit, and they are worried about the bit. So what do you have to do? How do I fix that? Well, first of all, before you worry about the bit, this is the ultimate thing to do if you've got a horse with contact issues. Unfortunately, I can't do this with everyone because people come to me and they just want me to fix the bit issue. And yeah, there's things I can do to make it best, but my ultimate kind of Rolls Royce treatment for any kind of problems with the bit is just to completely reboot the horse, put them back in the round pen, reboot them, because you got to imagine it all comes down to that concept of the worry cup. The less I can have in that worry cup, the better. If the horse is worried about the bit, I can assure you that negative association has gone into them being ridden. Okay, so I completely reboot the horse from scratch and get them just riding in a halter in a side pull position. As I said, I like the hybrid halters, and I clip rope reins to either sides so the horse is working off the feel laterally. I'm just going to take a drink because I'm about to cough. Okay, so I completely get the horse under saddle, walk, trot, canter, upwards, downward transitions, all in a side pull without a bit in their mouth. So I have emptied that horse's worry cup and got it really calm, willing and confident under saddle with no bit in its mouth. Okay, so worry cup is empty by the time I put that bit in their mouth again. And as I said, I really like the Mila Mullenmouth. I just have a lot of success with that particular bit. But there's other ones, It's just that I haven't had to find any other ones. And then I completely reboot the horses, remouth them. So I do what I said before. I get the horse just to, carry the bit around while I ride on the side pull, and then I gradually transfer them over to the bit. Okay. just starting off with lateral flexion and building on that. So that normally fixes the problem, okay? However, lots of times people won't let me do that. Or, I'll be meeting someone. I would have traveled, Adelaide or, somewhere, and I'm giving a clinic, and I might never meet that person again, and they want to ride their horse and they're worried about the horse's contact issues. Well, what I do then, just getting the horse following the bit better really helps them a lot. So just doing lateral flexion and getting them understanding to follow the bit, because the whole thing, what we got to do with bit and with contact issues, it all comes down to how the horse feels about that bit. They got to feel control of it and that it's not going to hurt them. So allowing them to learn that they've just got to follow it and they'll be okay. And the weight that goes in the bit is the weight that they put in. Okay, so you teach them the lateral flexion bit, following that, and then when they get really good with that, you teach them to follow the reins back, and then you teach them to push and seek into it. Okay, so they put the weight in there themselves. So there's a whole process, and I won't go into that too much because, I'll do a challenge on that one day and we can all work through that. So that's where I go with that. So that's how I fix mouth jiggling, but just say jiggling the bit and all those types of things. The other thing I'll just mention about that is it's also good sometimes to have a look at the anatomy inside the horse's mouth, because sometimes you can find out they've actually got quite sharp bars, or they've got a really low palate, and all those things can make the bit even more uncomfortable for them and really sets them up to actually have contact issues. So, I'll talk about that more in time. I know a lot about bits and a lot about contact because it was kind of like my thing, because as you know, I all started on this journey because I made a horse's mouth bleed, and to show redemption on that, I'm quite determined to understand contact to an incredibly high level. Yeah, so there we go. That's my answer to that question. So just looking to see whether I've got any queries on that. Okay, let's have a look. All right, so let me just have a look. Karen, you've asked, you're wondering if this is what happened to Ada. Yeah, this is what happened to her. Yeah, you're spot on there. That's how worry about the bit occurs. Any contact issue is caused by how the horse feeling negative about the bit. Okay, they're worried about the bit, they don't feel in control of the bit, and they're worried about the bit hurting them. That's what it's caused by. Okay, Debbie, I'd say it's a little bit more of, this is to do with the other question of the horse that became overwhelmed. I'd say it's a little bit of a habit thing with the overwhelm reaction. Was ridden by a teenager for 5 years till it got dangerous to ride as he couldn't physically cope anymore. Feel that it may have gotten emotionally connected to being able to stop. If he threatens to go up when stressed. Absolutely that. And that it's a habit they learn. It's a habit when moons align, if they feel a certain way and get presented with a certain situation, they have a go-to kind of negative thing. And that, we label them evasions. So yeah, definitely. And you just, as I said, ground pain, you just reboot them from scratch. You reboot that attitude, you reboot that willingness and everything like that, and you're way ahead on the game. And you got the skills to do that, Debbie, so that's cool. That horse is in its best place with you. Okay, Figal, I have a thoroughbred off the track who was initially very mistrusting, and she was very negative. We got through it, and she was really great riding in open spaces, competing. She has had a break after an injury and is back to tightening her whole body when you put the saddle on. Yeah. Same gear she had on for 2.5 years without trouble. Is that bracing and stepping short when you lead them off that negative thinking if you have to rule out saddle fit and injury? Okay, very, very damn good question. Okay, first of all, having time off after an injury means that they lose a lot of fitness and shape, so that can change your saddle fit. So if you ever have a horse that's spelled, or you put a horse on spell, it's always a good idea to have that saddle refit because it's actually going to change because the horse is going to lose condition. The next thing is if a horse has had some time off as well, all that they always regress. Now, especially if the horse was a troubled horse, you give them time off. It's like you got to think, how I like to think, I'd call it files, right? When a horse has a negative association or has learned evasions or bad reactions to things, or they have phobias, they stay with the horse forever. And good training, we can counter condition things and teach them new things, but those real negative things get locked in that horse's head in a file, and those things can always pop open. Okay, so things that can make files pop open, like negative thoughts about things and negative associations and phobias, is it can get re-triggered first of all, so the horse can have a bad reaction again and it loses trust. So just say you smash the marble jar. However, the other thing that you really got to remember, right, is time. When a horse has a lot of time off, those files creak open. So it's really important, again, that if you've had a troubled horse in the past, don't just assume you can give it a couple of months off and get on its back and start doing the things that you've been doing before. Don't. Start from scratch. Start from scratch and give that horse a proper reboot, a proper restart, because those files are creaking open, okay? That's why people have trouble with floating, horses that have float issues. If you have a float issue with a horse, you got to regularly float it, because, you'll fix it. Okay, get the horse floating really, really well, and then you won't float it anywhere for 2 months and wonder why it won't get back on the float again. It's because the floating file has opened back up again because you haven't done anything, all right? You got to keep files shut, and it's shut by the word consistent work, okay? So that's what I say with this thoroughbred. Giving a horse time off from injury, get the horse a saddle refit. Don't just assume that they will go back to where they're at. And I'd say you've got some files creaking open because of the time off and the injury. That injury's all kind of put them a bit back. It's emptied some marbles from the marble jar. They're probably not feeling as comfortable as they were. And another thing I want to say about thoroughbreds, because I love the breed, but they come with a lot of physical stuff after racing. And so what happens, to say with my thoroughbred, you give him time off and he just gets bent left. So all his natural asymmetry comes back. And so, of course, that's uncomfortable for the horse. So, the discomfort of having a weakness and the asymmetry coming back is enough to fill his worry cup up a little bit. So, you got to pretend you're back at the start, and don't be depressed by that. A reboot on a horse might be just a couple of weeks, at the most 4 to 6 weeks, big deal, 4 to 6 weeks, and you get that horse back. And the bit of comfort I want you to have in your heart about your thoroughbred is that you got them good. You got them good once, you'll get them good again. And if they don't come good, it's for a reason, and you'll probably find that injury's done something, or something else has happened. Okay, so if they can't come back, there's normally a reason for that, and it's normally a soundness issue. Okay, think about things, so little things as well. I just want to touch on, because I do love my thoroughbreds, but giving them time off or injury this time of year, don't get ulcers out of your mind, or that type of thing, laminitis out of your mind, okay, because they can be things as well that just can be, the injury could have triggered it, so just have those in your mind, okay? But if you got that horse going good, I promise you got a very good chance of getting that horse good again. Okay, just going to look at some more questions there. That's a good question. Okay, g'day Fiona, how you going? Okay. Next question. How long have I got? Oh, 5 minutes. I'm going well. Okay. How often would you go back to round yard training? And do you find it beneficial to fix problems even in horses that have been going well under saddle? Absolutely. Okay. As I said at the start of this thing when I was talking, I will go back all the way to round penning if I have to. Okay. And I told you about that horse that I had to go all the way back to round penning. And there's some horses I've gone all the way back to round penning, and it wasn't like that horse that I talked about that actually ended up having something really badly wrong with it. That, most of the time I just, they're just rebooted. of course, I will go back there. In fact, my preference is if you give me a horse, I'll chuck it back in the round yard. I won't even try to even go backwards. You give me a horse that I don't know, I'll put it back in the round yard. And that's why if you go to my clinic, where I like to start everyone is in the round yard and teaching people those skills, because you can learn a hell of a lot. Whatever problem you've got under saddle, I'll show you where it is in the round pen. Or, you know, we play this trick sometimes at clinics is give me a horse, let me round pen it, and I'll tell you what you're having troubles with. And I'll be right, because you can see it. So if I can fix it in the round yard, okay, and then, you know, make sure that file's shut in groundwork, you know, you get rid of the problem under saddle. And of course, that's why the process I use is so safe. You don't have to ride horses through anything. You fix them with nothing on them, with nothing attached to them. Okay, so I do think the round yard is the major reboot. It really helps them physically and mentally re-establish a learning mindset and an attitude, and that also that you're significant and they should engage with you, and it's that way of communication. So the round yard is really good because it just has so many layers to it. It's where you restart your relationship. It is total marriage counseling or therapy, couples therapy, you know, for you and your horse in the round yard. So yeah, I always go backwards. Now this is a good question to go with it, right? Can you overdo round pen training? Absolutely yes. And you should only be in that round yard if you've got really good rationale and reasoning, not just because it's your habit and your safety blanket of making your horse go around in circles. Okay, not good enough. You've got to be doing the round pen for a specific reason, because I've said this many times in my Facebook lives, you've only got so many circles in that horse's life before it's detrimental. You use them wisely, okay? So yes, you can overdo round pen you can overdo it if you're doing it for no reason. But just very quickly, here is my little process that I do and how I use the tool. I start off with round penning. Now, usually with me, I've really done what I needed to do in about 4 to 5 sessions max. Okay, that's the average horse. Then I introduce groundwork. So I do round penning, then I do groundwork and round penning. Let me go again. I do round penning and then I introduce groundwork. So I'll start the session with round penning and I'll do groundwork. Then eventually I'm just doing groundwork. Then I put the saddle back on the horse and I go back in the round yard, okay, and do some sessions just with that. So back to just round penning. Then I with the saddle on, I start off with some round penning and then I put the saddle, then I do groundwork, okay? Then I'm ready to get on the horse. So I do a bit of round penning, a little bit of groundwork, start sitting on them. And it doesn't matter whether I'm rebooting or starting a horse. Then I do some round penning, some groundwork, and I get on and I start riding them. Then I can let go of the round penning and I'll just do groundwork and ride them in the round pen. Then I get out of the round pen and I do some groundwork in the arena and then I ride them in the arena. Okay, and then eventually I just ride them. I just get on and ride them. I don't have to round pen. I don't have to do any groundwork, but only if I think they need it, such as going back to that first question. If I've got a day where they're a little bit funny, then of course I'll always go backwards with some groundwork. Okay, so that's how it works. So, and that's what you should do. And that process is about 4 to 6 to 7 weeks max. Okay, depending on whether you're starting a horse or you're rebooting a horse, or depending on if the seriousness of the problem that the horses have. But typically, you know, you do that little pattern that I just said, you know, you should just be able to be riding your horse, you know, just getting on and riding it, you know, after 4 to 7 weeks. All right. Any questions on that? Oh, Deb, bless. Thank you. I miss you, Deb. I'm glad you enjoy my Facebook Lives. I enjoy seeing everyone's name and answering questions too. Okay, just a bit of a pause. What's the time? 1 minute. Okay. All right, so I think I might have to address these. I just want to talk a little bit about the challenges, because I've got some questions here, and I'll do them next week because there's some great questions there. just a little bit of a heads up, I've really loved doing the round penning challenges, or the, the backwards forward yield exercise. Those challenges have been awesome. They've helped me develop courses, and they've helped teach me what extra things I have to put in the course. So in a couple of days, you'll find the round pen challenge course will come up, and I think you'll really enjoy that with what I've added to it. But my next challenge, which I'll give a call out starting tomorrow, is going to be groundwork. Okay, so we're going to do the groundwork challenge. Again, you guys are going to help me kind of do the beta version of my course. Please participate. It's so awesome seeing everyone's videos and goes through. I know it helps everybody. Simon's hair stands on end because he thinks I'm giving away all my knowledge and stuff like that, but there's a reason why I'm doing it. If I can get out there and show everyone that what I've got to say and what I recommend is helpful to you, and you're the starting people of my group, I don't mind supporting you. You're helping me build my course and giving me insights and things like that to help me. But it's nice to, lift a certain amount of members within the group, to give you skills, so then you can start going and helping other people that, to save me commenting on everything. So yeah, I've really enjoyed the challenges. Please participate. Please don't worry if you don't think you're not good enough. I hope you've seen all the lovely support that everyone's got by doing the challenge, and those who have participated, and how those challenges have really helped, really help people and change them. So there we go. So just one last look for any questions. Oh, good. I've got one. Luca, when lunging a horse that finds canter to one side harder and becomes unbalanced and worried, how do we help them? Oh, sorry. How do we help them? Hang on, I just got to go back. How do we help them? She will stop in her tracks and suck back. At that point, should you encourage them to keep moving forward or let them stop? Just worried it'll become a learned behavior. Okay, the thing that I'll say about that is, with that horse there, I put them in the round yard. I'd round pen them. I'd round pen them so I wouldn't lunge them. I'd have nothing on their face at all. And I just let them get confidence in canter on that bad side. And just the roundness of the round yard is enough to help their body, because it's making them kind of canter on a curved line. So it helps them really develop their balance with nothing on their face. So they tend to be less negative about it. But I will say, just be careful on their side. Some horses will have a really sensitive drive line. We talked a lot about drive line in the round pen challenge. And the drive line is the line just basically where the girth sits on a horse. With this horse might have an electric drive line. Some horses do. And if you encroach on it at all, they'll stop and won't go forward. It's just a real visual thing to them. Super sensitive, some horses. So what I want you to do is to make sure that if you had a laser beam coming out your belly button, is that it hits, that you position your body so it hits behind that drive line. Okay. And then to ask the horse forward. So yeah, some horses can have electric drive lines, and then if they stopped, so just say if they're triggered by it, I just ask them to go again. I'm very calm and I just gather it. I make sure I'm behind the drive line. I send them off again. But ultimately for this horse here, I'll put them in a round pen with nothing on their face, making sure I really respecting that horse's drive line and get it going with nothing. So I hope that helps. Kath's got a question here just to finish up as well. Kath hasn't been able to keep up with the challenges. That's okay. You've had everyone, because you got your grandson arrived. You are forgiven, Kath, okay? All right, guys, so that finishes off my live. I'll see you next week to finish off those questions. It's been great to see everyone turn up. Please, and remember, check out my YouTube. So what I'm doing with my lives, I'm putting them direct over to YouTube. As I said, I'm trying to do more content over there because I'm struggling with, Facebook not notifying people of my posts and stuff. Okay, lovely to see you guys, and I'll see you all soon. And remember, groundwork challenge coming up. Okay, see ya.